Hi, and welcome to this week's Real Life Happy Hour. So, I'm going to continue the conversation around some of the myths surrounding meditation this week. And I want to talk about this idea that some people get in their mind that meditation is a way to stop ourselves from feeling the feels. I think a lot of people, when they imagine or think about meditation, they see this kind of stoic monk-like equanimity, and they imagine that meditation sort of stops us from feeling some of our negative emotions. And this isn't the case. So for the everyday meditator, it's not the goal to try and avoid or suppress or not experience our negative emotions. In fact, when you start meditating for the first time, you might actually find that you feel more and you experience more intense emotions for a period of time as you become more attuned to noticing the sensations in your body and the experience in your mind and in your emotions. And so I can see why, if you have struggled in the past with intense emotions, that it can seem really attractive to be able to just kind of dull them or remove them. But the difficulty is when we dull our negative emotions, by default, we dull our experience of joy and beauty and all the really amazing, wonderful parts of life. So what we want to do and what we're aiming to do with our meditation practice is not to avoid or suppress our emotions, but to be able to sit with what our experience actually is without being carried away or overwhelmed by it. So what we're doing is we're becoming comfortable with the physical sensations in our body, and we're also becoming comfortable with observing the emotional and mental landscape within. And a really great practice for this is what is kind of like a 3-part body scan. So you might be familiar with a body scan where you start either at the head or the toes and you work through the body just noticing sensations. So that's where you start. You're just noticing sensations without the judgment. So we're not labeling things as good or bad, painful or pleasant. We're just noticing what we're sensing in the body. And once we've been through the body scan, what we can do next is we do a bit of a mental mind scan. So what thoughts are moving through your mind at any given time? And you do this again without judgment. So, and without getting carried away on the thought trail. So you might just think, oh, I had a thought of this, or I'm thinking whatever it is that comes into your mind. Even if that thought is, I'm thinking this is bullshit. That's perfectly fine. Like whatever it is, you're just noticing without judging what's going on in there. And then once you've done a bit of a mind scan, the last part is to do an emotional scan. So what can I feel? What sensations, what emotions are within the body at this particular point in time? Now, if you are in the habit of pushing down or suppressing or avoiding emotions, this can be a bit tricky. So it can be easier to just think about and notice the physical sensations that might be hinting towards an emotion. So you might notice a tightness in your jaw or a furrow in your brow. And that could be a sign that there's a bit of stress or tension there. Or you might notice a tightness in the chest or butterflies in the stomach. And it can be good to start with just the physical sensations, because one thing that we don't often think about is that many of the physical sensations for different emotions are quite similar, even opposite emotions. So if you imagine fear or anxiety and how that feels in the body, and then thrill or exhilaration or anticipation and how that feels in the body, they're very similar physical experiences. And what's different is the label that we've put on them up here. So when we clock in and check in with the physical experience we're having, it gives us a bit of space to decide what it is we're experiencing and whether or not we can reframe it as something that's perhaps not anxiety but is anticipation, or something that's, without going off on the story about the bad emotion that we might be experiencing. The other good thing about going through and checking in and allowing these emotions to bubble up is that once we do, they move through us and away. So it's a good way to release these kind of emotions, let them be experienced, let them be felt, and then it avoids us then pushing them down or suppressing them, or them building up to a point where they explode out over other people. So give this a go over the next week. You can do it every day. It doesn't take more than a couple of minutes to just find a quiet space. You can do it first thing in the morning or last thing before you go to bed, if that's a good time. And you just check in. What can I feel in my body? What thoughts are running through my mind? And are there any emotions that I'm sensing in my body? And can I let them be felt? So give that a go and let me know how you go. If you find any of it challenging, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Or if you find that it gives you a little bit of a different perspective on the sensations that you're experiencing, I'd also love to hear about that as well. So have a great week, and I will see you next week.